What's up, people? This is your boy Hassan Hancock here at the Ramen Room with my good friend Randall Williams.
Hey, what's going on, everybody?
Oh, man, it's a great day, good show coming up for you guys. Really what this is all about, it's a discussion of the anti-consumer. Everybody knows that the Nintendo Switch came out to raging reviews, some kind of mediocre for the console itself. Breath of the Wild, that's a different story.
Right.
But it's a great concept, and people cannot wait to see what's next for this particular console. That's generally how every console launch goes. You want to see what PS4 is doing, Xbox is doing, Nintendo Switch, Wii U, whatever. You want to see what's next. But there is, in this discussion, what we're going to be talking about is the anti-consumer.
It's a I think a phrase that gets bandied about after most hardware launches these days.
Right.
That's what happens. Accused of being anti-consumer.
Right. And I mean, is that a thing? Do you think it to be something that is purposeful, on companies? Is it something that they can do to keep from being or viewed as anti-consumer? I don't know. But after the break, we're going to dive right into it.
Real quick, actually, I'm glad you took that break. How long did you want us to go, by the way?
About 30 minutes.
30? Okay. All right. Welcome back to the Ramen Room. We're talking about anti-consumer practices, and it's a word I think it gets thrown out a bit much. I think a little more necessary these days. But you said you had a conversation. Kind of give us the origins. I guess you're talking to somebody, and they felt that there was an issue with the Switch.
Yeah. Now everybody knows Hassan is a big fan of the Switch. I mean, anything that I take interest in, I have great passion about it. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's Sony, doesn't matter whatever anime I'm watching, whatever movie I like. I have passion behind it. So with the Nintendo Switch, of course, the passion was there. I got it in my hand. I played it. I damn near shed a tear. That's what happens, right? But everybody didn't have the same sentiments. Everybody didn't have the same feeling that I had. Some people had quote-unquote faulty devices. And it started with the left Joy-Con deal, right? Some people said that it had a connection issue, And I didn't get that in my unit. I didn't take the stance on too bad, so sad. But some people took the stance on Nintendo being anti-consumer because these are the things that should have been checked on before launch or pre-launch.
Right.
There were cases where people said that the cradle itself, the dock, and the unit, the Switch itself, once you insert it into the dock, there's some scratching on the unit. Some people have said that the UI itself has freezing issues or doesn't recognize the game card. You know what I mean? And these are all things. This has nothing to do with like the eShop. This has nothing to do with the amount of games that's on the console. But these are specifically just straight out hardware issues that people believe that Nintendo didn't care to address. They just pushed out a unit so that the consumer can buy it at $300 USD,
right,
and then find these issues on their own. And then people believe that if Nintendo had taken those precautions, they would have put out a better system to where people wouldn't have to go through this, and they compare it to other system launches of Xbox One and PS4. And I just don't believe, personally, that all the cases that have been brought up are a case of anti-consumer.
Right. I think sometimes that can be a bit of a misnomer, as in, to me, shipping a product, I'm not saying the Nintendo Switch is a bad product, but shipping a bad product is different from shipping a product and trying to hide, not necessarily hide, but when I think of anti-consumer, I think if they were ignoring people's claims, if they didn't have a system in place to replace things, if there was just a massive failure rate and they were just still trying to push it on people without acknowledging that, I think that would be more anti-consumer to me.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, there's a lot of separate issues involved there. Do you think, as we get started here, do you think that the product was rushed in any way? Just not even necessarily in terms of defects, but in terms of like the way the UI is kind of bare. They have changes in mind because
Of course, yeah.
Because I do feel like with comparing to the PS4 and Xbox One launch, even I think that there was the fact that I think it was PS4 didn't have Twitch support. I think at launch, but the Xbox One had a few things it was missing as well. I think it had YouTube, but some of the streaming capabilities of things they were touting weren't pushed out. So I think in general the products were rushed to meet a certain date, which I think these companies can be in danger of. But I don't find anything necessarily malicious from that.
No, I don't. I mean, there is. I mean, what some consumers don't seem to grasp or understand or care to understand about is the fact that whether or not if a company is not competing directly or indirectly with the other, there's still other companies. There's still some sort of. They're both in the same space,
right?
You know what I mean? Now, and they have to have a product out that that their friends can enjoy. I mean, how dare the PS4 drop and everybody loves it to raging success or whatever the case may be, and then the Xbox One drops, a year later.
Right.
Microsoft is going to say, we're going to miss out on those bottom line dollars. Period.
Right,
We're just going to miss out on that because people are going to buy PS4, and here we go. They can't just leisurely put a console out.
Right.
So of course there's going to be some skimming off at the top as far as what you come to expect out of this console
and I think,
at launch.
Especially with the products today, I think that is, I'm sure I sound like a Nintendo apologist, but that's acceptable really from all those manufacturers as long as the product works. If they say, hey, we're launching because we want to get this in the hands of the people, we're going to have your games, it's going to work, but there are certain nice to have features, certain garnishes that'll come as long as they have like a game plan like 3 months down the line to and it's not a year later we haven't heard anything, or a year later and it takes that long to get together. I don't think that's necessarily a problem.
Right. I mean, I don't think
now,
so either.
Going back to what you were saying, I mean, there is culpability to be had by Nintendo. I mean, there's one thing that I'm sure if they're going to test, you can talk about the Joy-Con situation. That I don't fault them as much. I don't know their Q&A process. I don't know how intense it is, but I would imagine they probably tested it to make sure that the technology itself worked. They tested on a select number of units and felt that was enough. Now, you can, I guess, argue whether it should be more stringent than that, but I do think that I guess I give hardware failures, unless it's a massive failure or a clear problem in either the design of the hardware or, for example, like the thermal paste with the Xbox 360, unless there's like a really specific issue, you might just have hardware failures. The greater numbers you're going to see a greater number of hardware failures. Yeah. Software, I think, is something that I give them less of a pass on as far as testing, because that should definitely be more standard across the board. Like hardware, depending on how it's actually built, the person who puts it into place, whatever the components come together, there's that chance something could go wrong, something can short, but software should be much more uniform. So if you're having software problems or hardware design problems, going back to the screen being scratched, that's something I would get on Nintendo for. I don't know that that's necessarily anti-consumer, because we don't know how much they knew ahead of time. Again, if it's just something that if you do it enough times, eventually that'll show up. They just didn't do their diligence in testing. So I don't know if it's anti-consumer, but it is something that Nintendo, if they're as we spoke about over the phone before we even got to this episode, they have a plan in place. That's something they have to take care of.
Right. I mean, they've even said that we want people to call our tech support, our customer support, so they can in depth talk about these claims that they have with with these units, so they can do their best that they can to address them as efficient as possible.
Right. And it's disappointing, you get your new console and for things not to work off the bat or to get a scratch on the screen. But I think and that's why, and it was annoying, and it's at a larger scale. But that's why, at least with Microsoft with the 360, the Red Ring was unfortunate, and it was a mess on their part. I will commend them that for the very least they went and they took the bath on the price.
They lost billions,
and they took care of it though. That's what I mean. Once the the horse is out of the barn, you can't put it back in. So you have to do what you can to kind of rectify the situation. So as long as if I hear in a month or two that we're hearing about long waits to get a Switch rebuilt, or they're sending refurbished switches that aren't working, if there's that's to me is when you start looking. Okay, you start pointing the anti-consumer thing. Yeah, you start really getting the pitchforks out. Right. Initially, I mean, because part of that is just launches. Something when you launch any product, there's going to be
a unit that does not, and that's the unfortunate part. There's no company, there's nothing perfect in the world of gaming, in the world of movies or
Yeah.
cinema of any kind, there's just nothing perfect. There's going to
Right.
be something. I mean, just a minute ago, which is kind of off key, but for those who saw Kong,
Mhm.
in Ohio,
Yeah.
first night, they probably have, great reviews for it. They had a good time watching
Yeah.
it, right? But then there was that fire that happened in like Taiwan or something at the thing. In their mind, they like, you know what, they're gonna have this is gonna be a perfect, release here. They're gonna come out and watch it in the damn studio. Caught on fire. They didn't plan that.
Right.
There's gonna be something somewhere, sometimes that is gonna go wrong, and,
Right.
and it's always best on. It's always you have to look at how it's being handled.
Right, exactly. That's why I moved.
You
I
know.
moved to first of all, does it work? And what problems arise? I was okay. Before I go to straight up, being upset at people, I will look at how do they handle the situation.
Right. Right. And that's just one of those, just one of those things that I think people should point at. People are so quick. And it's because of, in the times that we're in now,
Right.
Everybody has a camera phone. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody has,
Yeah.
options. They can blog about it. They go to their favorite websites about it. They can go to Kotaku about it. They go to IGN about it, GameFAQs, GameSpot, wherever you want to go.
Right.
And they can and then they can, put out their grievances there and say, oh, well, this is what's happening.
Right. And you have a right to do that. I think you absolutely should do that. I think people should be aware of the fact that, again, now, if I don't know if Nintendo's made an official statement or if they've acknowledged it. Right. I'd imagine they would have. I mean, it's something that you alerting other potential customers to know that this is a problem that you've had and reaching out to Nintendo and even getting a chance to rant about it a little bit, I think is perfectly fine. I just don't know if you need to make that leap to something nefarious or malicious action from Nintendo.
Or blow something just straight out of proportion.
Right.
I mean, because when a collection of people do that, just because of your personal affair or your personal encounter with something, then what you do is unknowingly, and sometimes people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Then they try to, you end up, causing people to have second opinions or be dissuaded from purchasing any other product from this particular company. It happened with Samsung in the Note 7.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they were telling people, get rid of it. But some people kept it. Somebody's using it right now while they're listening to us, which is perfectly fine. Keep doing it. Well, just do it in moderation.
Right.
And not by a microwave.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, people cause these minor panics.
Right.
In communities, and all because of and some people, there's a difference between the person who takes the Switch, drops it in the dock, lifts it back up, and there's a scratch.
Right.
Between the other person who slams the Switch into the dock every time he decides to put it in the dock and personalizes. I mean, it just personally looks for a scratch.
Right.
Can it scratch?
Right. And part of it is, it depends on what because not every going back to the example, there might be someone who doesn't treat it with the kid gloves or with the kind of the fragility that you should the device, and so if you throw your Switch around and then get a scratch, I can't feel too bad for, or you can't blame that as a design flaw.
You miss your calling as a rapper, man. Your word choice, fragility. Lord, Jesus, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'll just say it's. We do have to take that into account, and most times people, especially when they're complaining on Twitter or on Facebook, they're not going to give you the full story. They're not going to see that as what fault they may have made. Now, again, that said, if they're Nintendo's job is to try to design around it as much as possible to make it as error-proof and idiot-proof as they possibly can. Mm-hmm. But again, I think anti-consumer is probably too strong of a phrase to apply to.
It's very strong.
Yeah.
I mean,
again, if this was massive failure rates, just software failures or hardware failures, or Switch is just shutting down, and you turn it on, and
40% of the units that were sold have defects.
Right.
Okay,
that and Nintendo was just acting like everything is hunky dory. That would be one thing. But just to have problems in general to me doesn't mean anti-consumer. It just means you have some problems with your units.
Yeah, I mean, and people they need not point this direction. Now there is some sort of anti-consumer practices that some people have just gotten over. Some people look at it as a financial thing. When you look at the gaming market as a whole, the only thing, I can't even say that anymore.
What were you gonna say?
I was going to say the only thing that hasn't gone up is the cost of games, but that's not true because when the PS3 dropped, when it came out, it originally came out at $600 USD.
Right.
Nobody bought it.
Right.
They had to drop it, take stuff out of it, take the
Yeah.
Dream System out. You know what I'm saying? Take different types of memory card slots, and SD card slots out of it, just to bring it down to like the 400, 350 competing prices.
Right.
But everything else around the gaming market goes up.
Right.
The cost to make them goes up.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You can't. I mean, people are blessed enough to get, and I use that word especially within this context. You're getting a game in Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting that game,
Mm-hmm.
and it's packed with not just the Nintendo charm, but just a lot of different things to do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And this is not GTA or nothing like that. GTA does a good job doing that as well. But look at the budget.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, what I'm
GTA
saying?
is a special case. Like
That's just a different. They spend $250 or $250 million, and they make $1 billion back.
Right.
You know what I mean? There's difference here, but at the same time, games like that, Breath of the Wild, you're getting a lot of content within that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
For $60.
Right.
But then there's games out there that want to have all that content day one that can't, because if they continue to do that game in and game out, they're not going to be around much longer.
Right. And kind of, mentioned the point we were talking off air about, anti-consumer practices. And I think there's a difference between a game that launches bare bones with the intent to sell you back content and removing content versus games. Because I know that there were issues where, like, especially a lot last gen, where they would go through the files of a game and see that there was content already locked on there for DLC.
Of course.
Yeah. But I mean, I think part of it is, though, I mean, I don't necessarily think that's inherently terrible, in the sense that could just be content they've packaged on there, but they worked on it after they finished the game. Because a lot of times people complain because, a news report will come out that the game hasn't launched and they're starting in the DLC. Well, these teams have already finished work or their portion of the main game, so they want to keep working, so they put them on another project. It's just the way these things kind of work. And I think that, like I said, assuming that there's something malicious behind it, or not really differentiating between the two, whether it's just, hey, this is all that we had time to make, but we want to give you a complete experience, so we cut it off here, and we're going to work on the rest later. Versus, there are, especially a lot of free-to-play games on the mobile space where, it's they try to reel you in, and they lock you up, and you can't really, they don't give you a complete product. And I just think the problem is people don't differentiate the two. Like you were talking about, the person you were speaking with that started this, discussion. They mentioned the fact that you could hack the Switch software as anti-consumer. And the thing is, Nintendo, I'm sure, would love to make it as much of a walled garden as they could and lock it down as much as they can. But I mean, you're not going to stop that.
Because people are fighting to get. I mean, they're trying to do this whole homebrew thing with
Right.
I mean, first of all, I don't know what kind of homebrew you about to do on a console that has damn near 8 games. Yeah. I mean, that's just the dumbest.
But that, I mean, people love that. I mean, remember the PS3 and the whole to do about the when Sony stopped the exploit that people were using to unlock it and to hack the PS3. I mean, the people want to be able to get in there and root on and do what they want to do with the console.
Same thing with the Wii. I mean, we got to just hack it and do what we want to do. We want a console where we can play all the games that we want to play, and never have to pay for them because this is not. What are you thinking?
Right,
about?
but I mean,
that's anti-company. I mean, if
we
we go talk anti-consumer,
it is. No, it really is. That's why when people when they talk about. I've seen people online talk about boycotting games, or they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna." I remember a few years ago they were complaining about Assassin's Creed, and someone was like, "Well, I'm not gonna buy it. I'm just gonna pirate it." I'm like, "Well, just at that point, I mean, if you're gonna boycott it, then don't play it. Deprive yourself of that experience." People, they want to get it for free. They're gonna. Yeah. They're determined they're going to find a way to get into Nintendo software.
I mean, they ultimately want to get it for free.
Mm-hmm.
Or they want to get everything all for $59.99 USD. Yeah, and that doesn't fly well.
That is something that does irk me, because sometimes I'm like, I remember hearing, I think it was Rayman Legends or Rayman Origins when it came out. There were people complaining about the price of the game because it has 2D visuals, gorgeous 2D visuals, but 2D. So they were thinking more along the lines of mobile. They didn't want to pay the experience for a full game, even though there's full game content in that game.
Right.
People are, it goes back to, like I said, I think that they're going to do what they want to do. Nintendo can only stop that, but so much. I don't think it's anti-consumer to say you have software that can be broken. Right? That's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, people. I mean, there's people out there who are doing nothing. I mean, okay, you have one person who's sitting around spending 130 hours on Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Then you have another person who's spending 130 hours trying to hack the UI on
Yeah.
the Switch, which
Yeah.
is to me, I don't have that type of time.
Right.
I think the average consumer does not have that type of time.
And I don't necessarily think that's necessarily a bad thing because sometimes they come up with their they can fix solutions, make things nicer.
Or firmware updates every time you get a new game. That's stuff that you.
I remember I had a friend who or no, actually, I think I did it myself. Modded my Wii. My sister had a Wii, so I modded it, just kind of messing around with it, and I was able to play a game off the USB, which was interesting. Just put it on, plug it in the back, which is, aside from the legality of that, it was just nice to be able to play it off a hard drive as opposed to sticking a disc, and that's just a nice thing to be able to do. And I said, in and of itself, besides how you get the game, I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with messing around to see what you can improve or kind of mess around and figure out with what they've done. I mean,
and there's levels to this thing. I mean, I always believe, and I truly believe that your normal blue ocean consumer is not bombarded with Joy-Con this not working, scratching that,
right?
Red Ring of Death this. I mean, well, that was different because that was on CBS.
That was pretty big.
Yeah, that was kind of that, and what Sony went through with the hacking of the PSN and all that. That's not anti-consumer or anything like that. That's just, oh damn, somebody got us.
Right.
Somebody they got me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think your normal consumer is bombarded with all this divisive type dissuading conversations of don't buy it's faulty and anti-consumer. Like you said, that is just a harsh phrase to throw out, especially within a week. I mean, you count. I mean, Happy Birthday Switch has been around for a week and 2 days,
right?
That's just absurd to me for people just to be like, this is crazy. A collage, a video collage of people having problems,
right?
Okay. What about out of those 22 odd people who went through that, what about the 330,000 people in Japan that got a Switch? I'm sure there's a number in there also that probably had a problem.
Right.
But I'm sure that they went through the proper channels in which they're supposed to get it.
Your people that are upset are going to be the more vocal of your group of people that are, the ones that are going to complain more.
It'll be a big thing. Just as the Red Ring of Death was big, just like the whole PSN hacking thing or the yellow light on the PS3 thing was a big thing.
Yeah.
If everybody just had it, it would be Tom Brokaw. He's not doing the news anymore, is he?
I don't.
Okay, well, if he was, he would definitely be covering it.
Ryan Williams, I think, maybe. I don't know. Someone on Good Morning America. It just, like I said, it remains to be seen if it hits that level of situation.
I don't believe it won't.
Yeah, I mean,
because they're putting a stop to it. I mean, because it is negative press. Let's be honest.
Right. That's another reason why I don't think it's necessarily
a ploy of fake news. I mean, that's just. Everybody ain't got this problem.
Right.
And I'm here to tell everybody right now, listening to the Ramen Room right now.
Let them know.
I don't have this problem.
Hey.
But if you're having this problem, I'd like to hear from you guys. I want you guys to hit us up.
And let us know, how would you like to see Nintendo, handle it? Or are they handling it to the way that you like so far? How is your experience with it? I know I was listening on the way over. There was an issue with Switches getting shipped from Amazon, some people not, getting it on time, and some issues from the start. So that adds together to kind of mar a launch of a new console, but are you still excited to buy it? Are you still happy with your product? Considering all this, some of the negativity that's out there.
I was at the bar the other day, man, and another comedian, he came up to me and asked me, "Hey, man, how's the Switch?" I said, "It was wonderful, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I love it. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Zelda's great. I just bought Fast RMX, and it looks good.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I'm like, it's great. And he's like, man, I can't wait to get it, man. My dude came over, man. It was just amazing. The one where you met me at that night.
Yeah.
Ty Brunetti. He came up and he was like, yo, man, I mean, I can't wait to get it. I'm probably going to get it, by Christmas. I'll probably get a whole bunch of gift cards and combine it. However he has to get it, doesn't matter.
Right.
The fact is, he's interested in getting it.
Right. Like, I'm interested in picking one up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Which I guess maybe makes it sound biased, but, I was just waiting on, I wanted Zelda. I was waiting on a few more games to come out to make sure, because I wanted to make sure I know what kind of system it's going to be for me. But yeah, I mean, and it's important to get these things out there because there are people like myself and the person you're speaking to who are prospective buyers, and we need to be aware that there has been hardware failures or that there's been issues with the software or scratching.
Right.
But it's more important to be accurate. To represent how much has actually happened. I
think your boy says something to that tune. Denzel Washington. He said, everybody's competing to be first.
Right.
And because what ends up happening with news like this, let's say you go to one of your favorite websites, right?
Yeah.
You're looking at an article on IGN right now, right? You just kind of figure out what's going on, what game is coming out. And at the bottom, when you scroll all the way down to the bottom, they have all this, these click here links and whatnot, right?
Right.
And then, it might be one link that says, Nicki Minaj caps back at Remy Ma.
Yeah.
Click here to see what
Right.
It might be that. Then it might be Nintendo Switch. And people see that and be like, wait a minute. Let me click on this thing.
Right.
After going through a whole bunch of, windows on your iPhone, because you find out that it's clickbait.
Yeah.
You get to the article and you read this information that, that kind of makes you be like, you know what? I don't know. This is kind of, and it's of course it's old news by then, but outside of that, the fact that it made it there is just enough, and it's appalling.
That's a big problem with these days. That once information just gets put out there, and it's out there. It doesn't matter right or wrong. Once it's out, it's in people's collective minds, and nobody really does the research to check up on it to say, hey, is this accurate?
Now, anti-consumer, I think companies, man, and I'm not a company man. I don't want people to think that, oh yeah, I'm just jumping out there and I'm just sticking by, Hasbro and Capcom and I threw a toy company out.
Yeah,
did you notice that? I did,
I was like, maybe they made the
Marvel
controller,
Comics, DC. I'm just a company man. I buy all my comics online and have them shipped to me day one. I mean, I'm not that deep into making sure the company stays afloat, because above all else, I'm looking to stay afloat myself.
Right. I mean, it's your money you're putting into this.
Yeah, it's my money. I'm part of CEG Productions.
Yeah.
We're working here at in the studio with Ramen Room, and I'm all about uplifting the community and doing the best that I can to do my part and support the community that I enjoy.
Right.
Be it comedy, be it games, comic books, whatever. Right. But at the end of the day, I do know that these people have to eat. I know that whoever made, Zelda, I should go out and give them 60, because it takes hours upon hours to make that. I should go out and buy, the Switch at $300. And for some people, they'll just wait until the deals come rolling in. You know what I mean? Which is perfectly fine too. Right? There's nothing wrong with that. $250, get a free game, make it $300 on. Who cares? You know what I mean? But I want to go out and purchase that. I don't want to steal from that. I don't want to call anti-consumer police. I don't want to, because it doesn't
I just want to be accurate. I just want it to be. I want to give them the fair shake. Like I said, I think it's right to call them out
for them, man.
Give them a fair shake, man. I think it's right to call them out, call these companies out if they're doing something that's
shady,
actively shady. Exactly, but you lose the ability to gain their ear and to gain the ear of the people if you're just pointing at crying wolf all the time. Exactly. It's
anti-consumer. Look at them. I just can't believe it. Why would they come out with a I mean, you go into this thing mad at them.
Right.
They don't have a 4K, they didn't use the Pascal chip, they didn't use the 4K native resolution.
And that's a totally different complaint than anti-consumer, because them choosing what you feel to be the wrong components, or even if we want to say objectively the wrong components, is completely different from them choosing components that are clearly faulty.
But those are those edge people. Those are the people who's living life on the edge anyway. So they'll go out and buy the daggone console. They'll buy the damn thing.
Yeah.
For the sake of, I want to play Breath of the Wild, and they'll be the first one to jump on the bandwagon of anti-consumer, because they really didn't want to buy it anyway. They just wanted to buy it for a game or just a couple of games, and and they're mad at that particular company's practices. The community is doing this. They should do that as well. Even though I want to buy this game, they should be doing what they're doing.
Right.
And oh my God, I just saw this video where this guy screen scratched on the dock.
Right.
Oh my God. Nintendo's just lost their mind.
Right.
And you got a whole bunch of those guys. And
it's that assumption that Nintendo is cackling with glee and rubbing their hands together like, oh, they're going to scratch their docks and we got their money. Like as if Nintendo's not a major company that people are going to complain about. I mean, they have a reputation to maintain.
Cackling with glee.
Yeah, they're just like super villains back there. But, case in point, when the 360 had its Red Ring issue, when it first came out, I was like, okay, well, that kind of happens. And then it kind of grew larger. I even got Red Ring myself. I sent it in.
Sorry about that.
Honestly, it wasn't a terrible experience. I sent it in. They were like, oh, it's going to take a while. They just shipped me a new console, sent me a month of live or whatever. I know there were some issues with, some refurbished consoles, but until they changed their motherboard and changed the heatsink problem, it was right to call them out and say, hey, make 5. Even though Microsoft was taking care of it, you You goofed. You done goofed on this. You need to own up to it.
They sent out a console
Right.
knowing that would exist.
Right, exactly. For whatever reason, whether it was rushed, whether it was being
money.
cheap,
Get that money. Hello.
whatever it was,
Get that money.
So you call them out and you say, hey, this was not, I would say, releasing the console in that way is anti-consumer.
I mean, and that was rushed, was rushed. I mean, because I forgot what was going on with I think they were having like issues with like the Pentium processor and all that type of deal with the with the OG Xbox.
Right. Well, and part of it, the OG Xbox just wasn't. It was. They were losing a lot on the console, and they hadn't sold a lot, so they were ready to. Once it was ready to cut ties for a new generation, they were ready to jump in.
Yeah, they was ready to do it,
and they wanted to get out there first.
Yeah,
and you can say that was anti-consumer. Now I feel they made up for it. So fast forward years later, when the Xbox One came out, and they're talking about the always online and love it or hate it. I don't think that's anti-consumer because it wasn't. It was you still had it. You still could play it offline. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a huge.
It just had to do it for the updates and whatnot.
Yeah, it had to check in. Again, you can love it or hate it. You can debate that and what they were looking to do with it.
I don't know. It's like the government. They got to connect. The government looking at me.
Right, and that was the thing. It became all of a sudden this huge thing that Microsoft was trying to spy on you, and all this stuff. And it's. I mean, again, you can debate whether or not it was a good idea, but the fact of the matter is, I'm not going to lobby at them anti-consumer when we've seen a case of it actually happening in the past.
Right, people out there in their basement with their tinfoil hats on talk about I would never. That's just so anti-consumer. I just can't believe they would do anything like that. Why would they even consider like I mean, I can't trade a game in. They have to have like a unit. Like, what was it? The Azure system.
Yeah, it was. And like I said, and there were a lot of rumors swirling about and a lot of it was on Microsoft for the way they presented the information. But going back to that, I remember being confused because when they first announced the Xbox One, they were gonna have their little reveal event. They said it was a media event. They're going to focus on the media with a couple games. And it came out and everyone was mad because they didn't talk enough about games. And E3 was like a month later. Mm-hmm. And I was like, it was on the invitation. It was clearly stated that it was going to be mostly media. And then everyone was like, oh, they're not talking about games enough. And then that's when the anti-consumer stuff came flooding in. And to me, it just was a bit ridiculous. Like I said,
everything's blown. I remember, I tell you what was anti-consumer with the Sony, with the Vita. They had, I forgot the game. I had it. No, I think it was Resistance for Vita. If you traded that game in, you had to spend $10 to, like, let's say you bought the game, right?
Right.
And when you bought the game, you got a code that allows you to play the game online. Boom, boom, boom. I'm playing a console type game on my Vita. You trade that game in, I buy it, right?
Yeah.
I had to buy another code on the PSN for $9.99 to be able to enable the online component.
Right, like EA had that $10 thing, similar to that.
And that's anti-consumer because now you traded the game in, I'm buying it, I should be able to play online no matter what.
Right.
I don't give a damn if Sony or whoever the hell made the game doesn't get a dime of that resale. Yeah. I shouldn't have to spend, but that was them trying to figure out how they can recoup costs from the trade-in value that they're going to get. Basically cut the middleman through GameStop.
Right.
So as a consumer, I'm spending more because GameStop's not going to budge on price for resale.
Right.
They're going to say, okay, the game came out at 40. We're going to sell it to you at 40. You're going to trade it in. We're going to give you a 25 for trade-in credit.
Right.
And then they're going to resell it at 34. And then I'm going to get it. And then I got to spend a $10, which makes the game $10 more than what it was
and
when you first bought it.
People always complain about how little GameStop takes off it, which is fine. But the problem is when you go to get that game like a year later, and it's down to like $30, and you still got to pay $10 more rather than buying it new.
Yeah,
I mean, and I understand them wanting to get their cut, but yeah, I feel that was anti-consumer.
That's very
the Vita going with proprietary memory cards that were super expensive. I feel like that's a little anti-consumer.
That's anti-consumer. I mean, that's very anti-consumer.
Yeah, like I was really
point the finger about this things. The fact that Capcom came out with Marvel vs. Capcom 3. And then a year later, come out with the Ultimate Edition,
right?
for full blown price.
That is
sober. We see these things, and we could say, "Hey, this is anti." Because I mean, it's anti-consumer practice that is what you're seeing. This is a practice,
right? Exactly.
You know, what I mean, that this console releasing and couple syncing issues is a misfire.
Right. Exactly.
Like, damn, we didn't know that
because Nintendo doesn't want this conversation about their product.
Yeah, look, can you imagine that? All right, guys, we're gonna sell this. Okay.
Yeah.
It's Switch Day. Now, Randall.
Yeah.
I got $10 on this for you, all right?
All right.
I bet you $10 that we're going to get 10,000 complaints about the left Joy-Con.
Right. Yeah. Like, I can't wait for that.
You want to raise me on that?
I'll give you 15, man.
Oh, you give me 15?
Yeah, 15 for 15,000.
I'm a call. Okay, all right. Can't wait. $15 is mine. Can't wait to give him $15. Nobody's doing that.
Right. It's like I said, it's not the conversation they want.
No.
Particularly when you're at a launch.
Can you imagine that?
You know,
Reggie Fils-Aimé coming out. You know, we're getting great games. What about the controller? We're looking into it.
Right.
We're getting great games. What about the screen scratching? People have been calling us about it. I mean, it's very minimal. What about? That's a lot of what abouts. All he wants to talk about is the games and the launch and the success.
Yeah, and to get people to say, "Hey, buy it now because we got Mario coming in the fall. You know, we got all these games coming. You know,
we got Mario Kart coming out next month. Yes, it's the same game that you played on the Wii U. People who had the Wii U version, it's anti-consumer. See, I should be able to play the game that I bought 2 or 3 years ago on this console now.
And to me, like, backwards compatibility is a nice feature. I'm glad the Xbox One has it, but I don't think not having it is necessarily anti-consumer. Now they can do it in anti-consumer ways. They could certainly do that.
Capcom are looking at you,
right? But exactly right.
You know. I mean, but now, there's and people are trying to come up with different ways that they don't have to worry about that anti-consumer conversation. So, for example, we just said Mario Kart is coming out next month for the Switch, and it's damn near the same game as the one on the Wii U,
right?
With a little bit more going on for it. Which kind of, if you played, I haven't played it. I'm not gonna make that claim, but if you play that version, you can tell the difference between the two, which is good,
right?
You can feel like a brand new game,
right?
But I know Xbox is doing that whole thing. Buy one time, play anywhere, which is very smart. You buy it on the Xbox One OG. You can play it on the Scorpio when you get it.
Right.
That's dope.
Right.
But that's where they're going. I mean, it's easier for them to try to build or create that ecosystem between Xbox OG, the S to Scorpio, because all those games are made in mind with that particular
right. Like clearly, they're building towards the unified Windows platform. The DWP. They're building towards a bigger thing with PC and the Xbox, and they want to. I feel like they're, Scorpio, they're going to change up the way they're doing their hardware. They're going to make Xbox more of a service brand.
Right.
But like I said, that's different from...
It's different from, going from PowerPC and your Wii U and Wii, and then switching over to NVIDIA.
Right, exactly. That's the thing. Like if there's a clear hardware change... Clear difference in the underlying structure. And again, I don't know how difficult it is to actually do the port.
I've heard that it was difficult.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't know. But if it is, or if there's a clear difference, I can understand that.
Yeah.
Now, if, let's say, Mario Kart came out 6 months ago, knowing they're launching the Switch, and then they're reselling it to you, that I disagree.
Different.
That's different. I think that's a little... Because, I know there was that issue, particularly within the last couple of years with this new generation, where companies... before backwards compatibility, particularly, were, just basically remastering games that came out a year or two before, remastering it and putting it back out on the new console. That, I would say, straddles the line of anti-consumer a little bit, because while it is nice to get a shinier version and to have it to play on your new console, the game just came out. If it's not been more than, like, 3 years, I don't want to see a remaster of, of a game, I'm trying to think of a game that came out recently. Like, I don't want to see, like, a Halo 4 remaster.
If I see that shit, I'm throwing Xbox out the window.
Right, like that's ridiculous.
I'm going to your house and throwing it out the window. I don't have one. I can get the shit out of here. It's shit. How dare you have it hooked up to this TV? What's wrong with you? What's going on? Damn remaster. Halo 4. What the hell's going on? Right. What? I don't know, guys. You guys got to let us know.
Yeah, it's a hot button issue, and again, I don't want to sound like I'm coming down solely on the side of the companies or that I'm against consumers having rights, because I think consumers should have rights to the
we all got rights. Purchase, if it happened to me, I would definitely. If it were to happen to me, I'm telling you something right now. I'm not going to get my phone out and make a video of the situation and then put it on YouTube so I could tell you don't buy this. What I'm gonna do is say, hey, y'all sent me a defective unit. I'm sending this back.
Right.
Send me a new one.
Right.
And if I have to wait a month, I'm gonna be back because I want to play. I want to play the shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's certainly time to be upset, I think.
But as long as they give me a new one, no hassle.
Right. Exactly.
I'm in there. I'm okay.
You lose time, but that's just kind of what life is. Like, I know a lot of people were,
you shouldn't have to do that, dude.
Well, it was like, I can't remember what the topic was exactly I was reading, but it was about, basically, the sentiment was people had gotten a game it wasn't a good game. It wasn't necessarily technically deficient, but it just wasn't a good game, and they were upset because they couldn't return it, or they couldn't really do anything with it. But I'm like, you don't have the right to not get a bad, it just sounds terrible. You don't have a right to not dislike your product, is what I'm saying. So if you get the Switch and you don't like the way it is because you feel it's a little bare bones, that's different from it not working. You can't say it's anti-consumer that it was released and there's not a ton on it.
Yeah.
I mean, because sometimes you just make a bad bet. Sometimes you make a purchase or it doesn't jive with
So
you.
it's just so anti-consumer for companies to do everything that they want to do and not what I want them to do for me.
Right, because I mean, the thing you can't forget is their interest and their goal, their stated goal is to sell you on this. Is to essentially, I mean, it's a bad word to say trick you, but to essentially get you to buy this.
Yeah.
And make you think it's in your best interest. It's your job to educate yourself and be aware. Okay, there are these issues. So if I take this plunge, I'm taking a plunge knowing that I could get a unit that has this problem.
That's
and
right.
now there are things in place, so I think that's a fine bet to make. But it can happen, and so you have to. It's your job to protect yourself and not to follow what the companies are saying, hook, line, and sinker.
Mm-hmm. Now we had a special guest that was supposed to come in today. I'm gonna try to move him. To next week, so you guys really insightful guy. He's one of those. I wouldn't even say like a PC elitist or anything like that, but he's very much so into what this show is all about.
Right,
comic books, anime, video games. You gotta love it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
We've spent a lot of time on video games here lately, only because it's the season. I mean, good God, look at all the games that's coming out just now between E3.
Oh man, got
there's
Mass
a lot
Effect coming up. It's gonna be
right. Got Mass Effect. I mean, the movies is looking pretty good too.
Yeah.
Especially like the comic based ones. You got your Saban heroes. Of course, Power Rangers is coming out.
Yeah.
Guardians
is coming up like in a month or two.
Yeah. So I mean, so things are popping out. Things is looking really good for the culture overall. This anti-consumer thing, I think, as a community, we're going to be able to debt this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like to move on to what like the Street Fighter Fighting Club. I mean, I like to talk about things like that. I like to talk about what happened with the Inhumans versus the X-Men. But you haven't forgot about any of that. I want to get geared up, ready for My Hero Academia. There's a lot of things that we're going to be going into in the next couple of weeks. But as far as next week goes, next week's episode is something I'm not going to tell you guys right now. You're just going to have to figure that out.
It's our favorite thing.
Right? But please hit us up at theramenroom@gmail.com. Again, theramenroom@gmail.com. And thanks to all those listening to us on SoundCloud, iTunes, every media, Facebook family, love you guys.
Mm-hmm.
You make us who we are. We love having your ears, getting you to work.
If somebody wants to cover, let us know.
Let us know. Just email us, man. We're here for you guys. But that's going to do it for us.
Yep.
See y'all next week.
Peace
out.